Hi guys, Emma here, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the thoughts and theories I've had since watching Twin Peaks Part 13. And I'm also going to talk about the news that came out this week about Twin Peaks and the possibility of a season 4. David Nevins, the CEO of Showtime, said this week in an interview, I don't think it was an official announcement, but he said it is unlikely that there will be a season 4 of Twin Peaks. The fan community have gone wild with this. I know some of you are happy about it, and I know some of you would desperately want more. I think there has been a bit of panic because we are so close to the end now, and we are still getting new characters introduced and new storylines, and it doesn't look like everything will be resolved towards the end. And I'm thinking that perhaps it might not be, but perhaps we might come to a conclusion where the seeds are sown for the possibilities, and those possibilities are left with us to explore. So I think that's where we might be headed. But if that was the ending, I think I'd be happy with that. I was always very happy with the way season 2 ended. Cooper being possessed by Bob. I always thought that that was the end of the story. Whatever happened after that was something that I could imagine, something that existed outside the boundaries of that story that was told, and I think that I would feel the same way about this season if it ended and there were still some unresolved things, as long as the story was crafted well up until that point. Let me know what you think in the comments below about your thoughts on season 4 not happening potentially, and whether you really want season 4 to happen. I know that, you know, some of us love these characters so much that we would just want to spend so much time with them, but at the same time I think that if you return to something, I think there is the potential to dilute the quality of material, of artistic material, if you return to something just for the sake of returning, just because the love is there, just because the fans are there. I think there has to be that artistic vision behind everything, and if Frost and Lynch want to do a season 4, then I'd be happy to go along with that, but I don't want them to do it just because the audience figures are great or because there is a good reaction to season 3. I want them to be able to do it because they have the opportunity to do it, and because they are driven to do it because it is their need as an artist. Anyway, I am going to be taking a look at some of the things in part 13, starting with the idea, which connects back to what I just said about season 4 potentially happening, and the idea of things coming together. So after watching part 13, I was suddenly struck by the notion that perhaps we are closer to finding a happy ending for the characters we know and love than we think we are. And the one scene that made me think this was the Nadine and Dr. Jacoby scene, when they talked about having met in the supermarket, and Dr. Jacoby said that he remembered Nadine picking up a potato 7 years ago, and clearly the two of them were attracted to one another. And I think that this scene is obviously pushing these two characters together, and if that's the case, then I think that there is a huge possibility that Ed and Norma will be together at some point as well. Thinking about that, thinking about the various characters in Twin Peaks and their relationships, we have Ben and Beverly seem to be getting closer and closer, even though there are obstacles in all of these relationships. There is still a connection there that links these characters, and I think that love is stronger than whatever obstacles are there, that whatever obstacles that exist. Let's look at some other character pairings in Twin Peaks. We have Frank and his wife. Now, they obviously have a terrible tragedy in their family, but they clearly still love each other, and I think Frank's patience is what we should take out of that relationship. His patience and his unending love for this woman, that he would let her basically go crazy at him, and he would endure anything that she wants or needs to throw at him to get her grief out. We also have like Bobby and Shelley. This is a more difficult one because Shelley seems oblivious to the fact that Bobby still loves her, but Bobby clearly still wants to be with her. it's difficult to know why that relationship broke down, actually, because Bobby is quite a catch, right? And I don't know what Shelley sees in Red. I think the fact that they have a daughter together keeps them closely bonded, and I think the fact that we see that Bobby still loves Shelley, that's that seed of love that I think is important in regards to the theory that I'm trying to spill out here. So I think that whilst we see these couples in trouble and struggling, I also think that there is as much love in these relationships as there is pain, and I think that love will ultimately triumph. And in this episode we saw Sarah Palmer in her home. She was watching a boxing match. Now, lots of people in the comments of my last video suggested that this boxing match could feature Bushnell. Taking that idea and running with it, I was wondering whether Sarah Palmer was being shown this footage as a power of good rather than something evil infesting her home. Is it possible that this footage was playing because she is supposed to have a connection to Bushnell, and could that be her happy ending? I can't remember a scene where he says he's married. If there is, I apologise, but I do think that Sarah Palmer deserves a happy ending. To think of the pairing of her and Bushnell, I think it would work. I think that those two would make a lovely couple. Another scene that I think is important to note in this episode is the Audrey scene. Now, the Audrey scene to me was even more complex than the first one we saw of Audrey, and after the first scene, I know that there were a lot of fans saying Audrey's in a coma. She has to be in a coma because this scene played out so strangely and it made no sense, and this isn't the Audrey we knew. I didn't really buy the coma theory after the first scene, but after the second one, and thinking about this idea of we're so close to the end and will love triumph over evil, I have to assume, or I want to assume, that Audrey is in fact in a coma. She's still in a coma after the bunk blast. And the reason why I think that this would be an appropriate storyline for Audrey is because it would mean that both she and Cooper haven't spent the last 25 years on Earth living a normal life. They've both undertaken the same experience of being trapped somewhere, of being confused and confined, and it would mean that the possibility of a Cooper-Audrey relationship could be very strong, I think. And I know that Cheryl and Fenn really love the idea of the Cooper and Audrey relationship happening, and I know that many fans also love the idea of a Cooper and Audrey relationship happening, and I think that if Audrey was to find herself in a situation where she had so much in common with Cooper that they were starting again, if she comes out of this coma, assuming that she comes out of this coma and she meets with Cooper, who has also regained his senses from this doggy persona, then the two of them would be starting life anew. They would be starting afresh and discovering the world together. I think that would be an absolutely beautiful storyline. It would also explain a lot about why Audrey's never been mentioned in any conversation with the Horn family. And I think that potentially Evil Coop went to visit Audrey in the hospital when she was ill, and he put her in this coma knowing that she was pregnant, possibly with John Justice Wheeler's baby. And the reason he did this could be that he wanted to isolate Richard as a force for evil in the future. Planning ahead, yes, but if you have someone like Red in town and Red is working for Evil Coop, and you have the potential to corrupt a little boy from infancy who is separated from his mother and doesn't have that motherly guidance, then that would be such a brilliant opportunity for Evil Coop. I think that Richard was raised by Ben and Sylvia, and when Ben said that boy never had a father, he could have potentially been meaning himself and his failings as a guardian, which actually would make that scene really, really sad if that's what he was saying, that he hadn't been the father to Richard that he hoped he was. But yeah, I think that with all these couplings that we will see them come together to a point, but we won't potentially see what might happen to them in the future. We might be just left with knowing that there is a potential that they will come together. And I think there's time enough to see that happen in the final 5 hours. Before that happens, I think there will be an almighty war. And the reason I think this is because of the evil Cooper scenes we saw this week, in which he basically assembled an army of hicks and rubes and grimy losers, basically. When I saw that scene, I thought, like, these are the anti-Bookhouse boys. And I think that potentially the idea of them being the complete opposite of the Bookhouse boys might be evinced by the fact that there is a 90-foot TV screen at their headquarters. So it's like, you know, that old adage of, if you watch TV, you're a bit dumb, and if you read a book, you're bright and intelligent. And I think that basically there are two armies forming. On the side of good Coop, I think there are characters like Janie, the Mitchum brothers, the Bookhouse boys in Twin Peaks I think will come into play. So Frank and Hawk and James and Andy. And on the other side we have evil Coop and his army of degenerates and Hutch and Chantel and Red and Richard. And there are some players that we don't know, or we can't tell which side they are playing on right now. So we have Diane, who's a bit of a mystery, Philip Jeffries, and the one-armed man as well. A lot of what happened in the last episode really confused me because I couldn't fathom why the one-armed man would give Ray the ring unless it was something nefarious. So I can't understand which side the one-armed man is playing on. Is he doing everything that he's doing for good Coop, or is he doing it for evil Coop, or is he playing both sides? Is he playing it for the side of the lodge? Is he doing it because it needs to be done? I'm really confused. In regards to that Audrey scene, I know that I kind of went a little crazy last time talking about Baba Black Sheep, and some of you mentioned that The Girl Who Lives Down the Lane is in fact a movie. And I had a look at the synopsis of what happens in that movie. I've never seen it, but it seemed to say that at the end of that movie, Jodie Foster's character tries to poison another character, and she does this by putting something in a drink, I believe. That seemed to be what I was reading anyway. It just reminded me of the Dougie and Anthony scene in that last episode, and I wondered whether Audrey, being in this coma-like state, was channeling what was happening to all the people that she knows and loves. So when she talks about Billy and the Roadhouse, maybe she's talking about something that's happening in Twin Peaks, but not necessarily to her. Maybe she's picking up on all of these feelings from the lives of other people, and that's why she's referencing the Roadhouse and referencing Billy and all of these characters that we don't know and have never heard of. And perhaps that was her moment of picking up what was happening to Cooper, because she had a very strong connection to Cooper. She was inspired by Cooper, she loved him, she was sexually attracted to him. She matured, I think, when Cooper came to town. She really changed as a person, and I think that potentially that she could still have a very strong connection to him, especially if evil Coop had been the one who put her in the coma in the first place. There's also James and the Jessica Zohr character, and I think that there is clear evidence that Jessica Zohr's character really loves James and really would like to have a relationship with him. And I think we are seeing many of these relationships either in a transitional period or relationships that haven't begun yet. So I think that there is a lot of hope involved in the budgeting of all these relationships, all of this love, I think. And I think it is coming back. I think it will prevail, and I think we will get a happy ending. I know that that's perhaps not always true of Lynchian material, but I get a feeling that we will get a happy ending this time. Regardless of the way it's looking right now, because it does look pretty dark and as if the puzzle pieces aren't quite coming together as quickly as we expected them to at this point in the series. That's it really. I just wanted to make this quick video. I don't have any more theories. I know there are some spectacular things in the last episode to talk about, but I can't come up with any ideas about such things as like Ed's reflection in the end scene. I have no idea what was going on there. And the continuing mention of Philip Jeffries is also something that is confusing to me and that I would like to theorise about, but which is leaving me absolutely stumped, because I get the feeling that why is Philip Jeffries being mentioned so much? Because it's leading up to a David Bowie cameo. That is something that is incredibly tantalising to think about, but I don't know if that's where we're heading. But I just think it's so interesting that Philip Jeffries is such a big character in this show now, and that he was mentioned in this episode again by Ray. I just would love to know what's going on there. Perhaps Philip Gerard is masquerading as Philip Jeffries. That was the first thing I thought in the last episode when I was watching it, and it would kind of make sense if that was the case, and it would explain why the voice was different on the phone call earlier on in the season. Yeah, that's it really. I just wanted to talk about the idea that I do think that everything is going to come together in the end, and I think that love will prevail. I think goodness will prevail. I think Laura is going to be at the helm of this goodness, that her energy and Good Coop's energy and that team of unlikely people that has assembled around Good Coop will save the day. At least that's what I hope. If it didn't happen and it was a complete destruction of Twin Peaks, like the whole town just obliterated and Good Coop sort of pummeled into his grave, then I'm not sure how I'd feel, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But thank you for watching today anyway, and you can leave your comments below if you have anything to say, either about the season 4 not happening or about any theories you might have come up with after spending some time with the episode. Okay, bye!